Welcome back to the Nerdrotic Podcast. My name is Gary Buechler. I am live in San Francisco, California, and I come to you from nerdrotic.com. And down south in San Diego, El Cajon to be exact, is my good friend and co-host and my counterpart, Dennis Bithoulkas. What is up, man?
I hope we're not counterpart. Well, you know what I mean. Counterparts in that we work together, but not counterparts as in this show. I'm doing okay.
You never know. It's all about the mirrors, man. It's all about the mirrors. Yeah.
That'd be scary.
So it's been so long since I've talked to you, at least.
I know. At least 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah, something like that. So here we are. We're back. This is the only show we're covering for the next week or so, which is okay, because it's such a great show. Counterpart. We are halfway through the season. We know a little more. This episode, it's episode 5, Shaking the Tree. And they did that. And another great beginning, a nice little montage of, it's like really mundane stuff done really well. And I don't know if it's like the execution of the filmmaking or the great music by Jeff Russo, or it's just, I'm so into this show. I don't know. But at this little crossing scene, we had 3 people who we don't know going across to do some quote unquote maintenance on the embassy. But they looked a lot like assassins to me crossing. you know?
I got the idea that they were just kind of, I don't know. I thought they were refugees at some point or something like that. That's what I was getting.
It looked like they were going on an op to me. It was pretty clear. And I think it was just the music build up. And, I don't know, like if it's how easy it is. That they haven't shown us like how hard it is to get a visa to go to the other side. It's looking like, I think they're just cutting through the BS and just getting to the point. It's probably very difficult to get a visa. And I'm sure at some point we're going to see somebody trying to sneak across or do something. Yeah. But it looks very hard. But yeah, so we just follow these 3 people who we don't know into our world, and they go to an apartment in Berlin, and they talk to a guy. They tell him to extinguish his cigarette immediately. It's disgusting, although it's pretty valuable contraband on the other side. So I thought that was a little interesting. They are shown their new digs by this guy. They're told to, they only have 30 minutes of hot water. They got some packages in. He doesn't, and this guy, he's like, I don't want to know anything. You're not going to get asked a lot of questions here. And, but you need to be out
in 3 days.
Yeah. And then we get a cool little scene with a water bottle, which I didn't know you could do. I don't know if that really works.
Yes and no to some degree. I'm not going to say how I know this, but anyway, he basically dumps out the water out of the water bottle. One of the guys, he stuffs it with a towel, stuffs the gun into the bottle itself, and brings it up to the back of the guy's head, pretty much just shoots and splatters his brains on the wall.
Yeah, and this is right after he said, listen, you don't make any trouble for me or I'll make trouble for you. And the girl he was talking to just nods and goes, okay. And then pop. So it was a pretty good silencer, I guess. But did you notice there was a redheaded woman, there was a tall guy with glasses, and then there was just like the normal brunette guy. He didn't look very down with the cause, or he would look at least shocked. He
looked kind of nervous is what he looked.
Yeah. So I thought that was something.
That's why I got the refugee kind of vibe from him, is that he was running from something, or, he was desperate more than anything else.
Which makes you wonder is what this operation is all about. Because what they've made pretty clear is that the Prime world doesn't think very well of our world. They're really pissed at us.
Yeah.
But why do a bunch of them want to sneak over here? Is it just to do an operation, or is it to run from something?
That's what we've been speculating for a while, is that it's running from something, but we don't know for sure as of yet.
No, we don't.
And then from there, we actually move over to Howard Prime, bumping into Michael in the cafe for a game of Go. And he almost screws that up by winning the game. He comes very close to winning the game. And Michael even says, have you been taking lessons on the side from somebody? Because, You're very close to winning. And that's when Howard kind of realizes, oh crap, I need to pull back a little bit to maintain cover, and promptly loses the game.
Which I think is pretty telling, because of our whole theory of Meek Howard is not exactly Meek Howard. And they mentioned in the first episode, Michael, I thought his name was different than Michael, whatever. It was that he mentioned that you're almost like losing on purpose. And Howard says, well, maybe I'm just teaching you how to win or something, or it's something to that effect. And did you notice that
That's,
Howard Prime didn't say a word?
yeah. And by the way, his name's Andre. I'm sorry about
Andre,
that.
yeah.
It was not Michael. For some reason, I thought it was. I had Andre written down first, and I scratched it out and put Michael in. I don't know why.
It's okay.
But yeah, he didn't say anything at all. He didn't want to give anything away because remember Howard had told Prime about Andre and his Go games. He was like, yeah, I got it, and didn't get any more information from him. And then it's like, oh shit, he actually did know this guy quite well. And I think that was kind of Meek Howard's way of almost kind of setting up Howard Prime to be found out.
Kind of screwing with them.
Kind of screwing with them, yeah, because he knew that Prime wasn't gonna press him for any details on this guy. And this is the guy who knows him pretty much the best because he's been playing this game with him every single day. And he just kind of brushed over it fairly quickly. So I'm thinking that's Meek Howard's way of kind of screwing with Howard Prime.
Yeah, and it's also clear that Meek Howard is doing kind of a better job. Neither of them are doing a very good job acting like their counterparts, but Meek Howard's actually doing a better job. He's screwing up his life quite a bit, but he's got people convinced, and we'll get into like what he's doing later because it's rich. It's rich. But yeah, the one good thing Prime Howard did is he got that like goofy smile that Meek Howard has when he went back to play. But even in that little game and losing, Prime Howard did get a little information.
Yes.
Each scene gives you a little more information, and this whole show is people trying to suss each other out. That's all it is, but it's done so damn well. And we had everybody in this episode except for Ian, pretty much.
Yeah, we had a little bit of Ian, but not a lot. He was just kind of like passing through, if you will. And
yeah,
Prime afterwards, after the game, he ends up going to visit comatose Emily in the hospital, and it's from there. It was kind of a weird visit. I mean, he just came in and he told the two handlers, he goes, "Isn't it time for you guys to go outside?" Kind of thing, just to remind them that they need to keep up appearances as well, even though he almost screwed up in his appearance. So it's kind of like he's projecting on these guys, like, dude, we need to keep up appearances still.
Yeah, and he comes in with like this pathetic bouquet of flowers that look like dandelions he pulled on the side of the road. And he sits down and he says something really interesting. He's talking to Emily and he's like, you couldn't just do a cipher like a normal person, drop something into a locker.
Yeah.
You started with all these letters, and for all the years I've known you, I'm still in the dark. And this is kind of, when the show began, it looked like Howard Prime was completely in the know, in control of the situation completely. And now he does look like he's the most in the dark out of everybody. Including maybe Meek Howard. I don't know, but yeah, that was a really interesting scene. And Emily, we've gotten to know so much about a character who's been in a coma for 5 episodes. I'm just sitting there.
Excuse me. Then we have Heinrich opening up the butcher shop for the day, and he gets a visit from Claire and her minions. And Claire basically, says, we saw 2 guys came in and talked to you the other day. Who were they? I don't know. I have so many guys that come in and talk to me. Because this was Howard Silk. What did you say that he's from our side? One of them was from our side, one of them was from their side. Howard Silk, what did you say to him? And he's like, I didn't tell him anything, kind of thing. And this is at this point, that's when Claire's like, you know what? You're going to tell us what you said. You're going to die either way, basically, is what she's, inferring. And he tells her, he goes, you know what? He goes, our side, their side, all the years I've been here, the only thing I know is we both go to the same hell.
Yeah. And she had mentioned, like, how could you choose, them over your people? And that's what, brought that saying on. He's all, yeah, 10 years here. I've got 3 at home. You know what I know? There are no sides. And they don't show him dying, but it looks like
It's
he's pretty
implied.
much dead. But did you
Yeah.
notice, and I'm probably wrong on this, but there was 2 guys guarding the door, and no, there was one guy guarding the door, and they waited for another one to walk in. And it was a really well detailed scene because you see the guy walk in from the distance, walk in the door, and she was just waiting for that other guy, right?
Yeah.
And then we had 2 guys behind. So the guy who was guarding the door, you could barely see him, but it looked like Raj. It looked a lot like Raj. I think he was a little thinner, but it looked a lot like Raj to me.
Yeah, I don't think it was him. Oh, yeah. It was probably another Bulgarian.
Yeah, those Bulgarians.
But we do find out from the talk that she's having with him about the school. We get something that's called the
Yes.
school, and the people that Pope is dealing with are from this thing, the school. We just know that they're an espionage group from the other side. We don't know what they are as of yet. And basically, we know that Heinrich's going to die at this point, no matter what he says. If he gives up the goods or he doesn't, he's not going to give up anything. So he's pretty loyal to Howard at this point, Howard Prime, and not saying anything at all.
But we don't really know because they cut away. He puts his hands on the table and they cut away. So he either could have dished at that point because he asked, he's like, is it going to matter if I say anything anyway? And she's like, oh, you've chosen your side.
Yeah.
And, so he could have spilled at that point or just said, go ahead and kill me. We don't know. That's where they kind of left it. Claire is becoming quite the character in this one. She is, she plays it really cool. She looks like this cold-blooded assassin, and she doesn't do a lot of talking or anything. But
No.
again, it's in her facial expressions that she just kind of looks like she's kind of starting to be sorry for what she's doing. Like maybe she's getting a conscience,
I don't know if it's that. Yeah, I don't know. She's really hard to read, and the more we keep finding out about her, the more we keep finding out that she's a major player.
Oh yeah, but when Heinrich says to her, when he says, you know what I figured out being here for 10 years, and she just a little bit she looked totally control the situation, and just in a little twitch of the face looked questioning. So that was, and this show is such a slow, such a slow burn. You can catch stuff like that. And this is what you get when you have a good storytelling and you're not like shaking your camera all the GD time and, editing, like doing the Michael Bay edit 3 times within a sentence, and sometimes that stuff is good. Sometimes it's needed, but that's what's great about this show. Slow, but not boring at all. Also, go on.
No, go ahead. I was just going to go to about Howard now going to visit Anna at her apartment, and she meets her rude boyfriend, Falco, which I thought was kind of funny that he was named Falco.
I know, right? Was he rude, or was he just protecting either his friend, roommate, girlfriend, whatever he is to her, from a dick father?
He doesn't know who he is. He says, I only know you from pictures and only what she said. And yeah, he was being kind of rude. All he was just asking was, hey, do you know where she's at? I want to talk to her. And he's just kind of being very dickish.
Was he being dickish or European? I don't know. Just kidding, my friends from Europe. Sometimes they're just very direct people, and that's great because they're honest. They're not like us BS artist Americans. So I get that from my Russian friends. They're very direct, good, direct people. I appreciate that. I really do. I think either way, yeah, he's being dickish, but I think in the Meek Howard didn't deserve it, but Prime Howard does deserve it
Yeah.
for just being this asshole father. We're told. I mean, I don't know everything, but Anna seems like a nice girl, and she's had to be the parents to them, and we've all had friends in that situation, so we know what that's like. What's interesting about that scene, Dennis, is this is the first scene of many to come in this episode of Meek Howard getting a ton of information by
Mm-hmm.
just going, golly gee, I'm just her dad.
Yeah.
Where does she work? What's and he's he told her that she's at work. So he finds out she has a job somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
So even though it's like little bits of information, it's information. And people want to spill to him for some reason. I don't know why. We'll get more into that later though.
Yeah. Yeah. And so he ends up taking a walk out to the pier and sitting down. This is where we saw Emily Prime actually reading notes. It's the same bench. And who shows up? But Mr. Pope.
Mr. Pope.
And Mr. Pope knows exactly which Howard he's dealing with.
So again, it is no secret. Okay, so these are the supposed bad guys right now.
Yeah.
We don't know if they're the bad guys, but right now that they're being played as the bad guys. They know everything. They know absolutely everything. It's the good guys supposedly who are lost. So yeah, so Stephen, the great Stephen Ray, just chews up scenery in this scene. He is so freaking good. And yeah, his little dog's being walked in the background, and he's like, "Yeah, you could just drop the pretense. It's my boy,
Yeah.
and not
Because I
too
know
many.
exactly who you are. I know exactly why you're here. And, because I was the one who pulled his visa, is what he says. So that's the reason why you're here.
And Howard just has this dumb, questioning look on his face.
Mhm.
And what does he get?
Yeah,
Information, tons of
exactly.
it.
Pope says, he goes, because he goes, do you work for the office? And Pope's like, yes, in a way. He goes, I'm a runner. And he goes, well, what's a runner?
I have no idea
And
what that is.
yeah, and I have no idea what that is. And Pope elaborates and says, someone who makes operatives like Howard.
So I
Because I
take
take
somebody
them.
like you and I turn them into Howard Prime, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, okay, so now we know we have an organizational structure here, is what he's building up. And it's like, this is espionage 101, man. He is out there and it looks like he's fucking up things, like screwing things up, but he really is getting an organizational chart of the floors of the office, is what he's
Mhm.
doing. If you go through and look at this, he's getting an organization, he knows who's doing what where. And all by just going, golly gee, I don't know what that is. Can you
Yeah.
elaborate?
First time he meets Pope, he finds out he's basically this major handler, right? So, and this is the guy we're suspicious of. And the first thing he does is warn him about Emily. Okay, now this might be a genuine warning, and I'll get to that later. But he says, she ruined my Howard. So
Yeah.
you need to not trust her. And if you need any help, just drop a message on the lamppost. And Howard goes, he's all, you don't know what that means, do you?
Yeah.
You really are plain.
He goes, yeah, just ask Emily. She'll fill you in. And a Viking bitch asks, so Pope set it up for Howard Prime to stay on the other side? Not really, but kind of. And this plays into a theory of ours that we have that we'll talk about a little bit later here. Or did you want to talk about it now?
Oh, we can talk about it later. We'll get
We'll
there.
talk about it
We'll
later.
get there.
But no, he actually pulled the visa on Howard Prime, not knowing that Howard Prime, well, he might have kind of guessed that, Howard Prime would use Meek Howard in this way, but probably wasn't guessing that they were that far along that they would do this. So no, he didn't arrange it so that Howard Prime would stay on the other side. Um, do you have something there?
No, go on. I got a question for later. And I'll write.
Okay. So yeah, Pope tells Howard to watch out for Emily and Emily Prime, and that she isn't all that she seems, which we already know this.
Yes.
And then we have Aldrich and his team coming into the office where Prime the Howards have been working, and basically just searching the entire hell out of that office to see if there's any contraband. They do find a little bit of contraband in there, but nothing. It's just minor stuff. Nothing too big that's going to give anything away.
Nothing major, but Aldrich is a man of very few words.
Yes.
And there's a theme in here, like the less you talk, the better.
Mm-hmm.
And if you wait it out, people will give you info. So he does this whole dog and pony show of searching the office, and Quail just spills.
Quail. That's
Quail.
right.
Yeah, Quail just
Oh,
spills everything, dude. Like about, he's all, yep. I went with Howard Prime to one of his operatives, and he said there's a mole on the 3rd floor. He's high up. He could be you. He could be me, but it's a director level. Yeah. Or any one of your guys. And Aldrich goes, let me take you for a drive. And I'm like, uh-oh.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
Don't be going for a drive. That's not a good idea. But it turns out to be interesting.
Yeah. Did you want to go to the next scene, or did you want to
go to the next scene? No.
Yeah. So Andre ends up trying to visit Emily. We find out in the hospital. He's at the hospital, and Howard Prime sees him in the hospital trying to sign in. The guards stop him and they turn him away, and he looks down at the sign-in sheet and sees that Andre was trying to actually visit Emily in her coma there. And very kind of weird. So Howard Prime starts following Andre, follows him back to his apartment, and then just sits on the stairs at the stoop inside and waits for things to go, come what may, if you will. And that's when we have Howard talking to Emily Prime about Pope. So we're getting a little further along on Pope here and how she is different from his Emily. And they're talking about a little bit of the differences here and there. And then also he uses this to suss out. This is one of the things that we were talking about, is that he plays really stupid to Emily, and he gets more information out of her because she's, of course, she knows she's housekeeping. He knows, they both know that she's housekeeping and that she shouldn't say anything, but still she offers up so much more information on anything that Howard gives her at this point. And again, he's not saying a lot. He's just kind of acting stupid. And Howard finds out that Pope tried to kill Emily Prime and tells her that he tells her that Lambert is involved and that the embassy might be compromised at this point.
Yeah, and this is after she had told herself a couple times last episode that I shouldn't be talking to you.
Yeah,
I shouldn't be talking to you. But you're just so easy to talk to. Sound familiar? So yeah, he's getting the structure of their organization. He's got their head of housekeeping, or one of their heads of housekeeping, just feeding him info right now. And for all we know, he could be working for Pope. Yeah. I mean, that whole conversation could have been a ruse, or Howard Prime is actually working for Pope. Because this is what I wrote down is, why hasn't Pope just killed Howard Prime at this point? He knew he would be his biggest problem. So if this is a guy who's worked with him for 20 years, tried to turn him at one point, maybe even did, who knows? Maybe, it sounds like even within this organization, like floors are fighting against each other. Members on the same floor are fighting against each other. And it's spread through to our side. And this is what we know very little about, but I don't think it's I don't know if Pope's a bad guy. He seems like it right now, but who knows?
Yeah, I mean, we don't know who's a bad guy and who's a good guy really at this point, and who's doing what. Jody asks here, he says, what I wonder is whether or not Meek Howard is really just playing a very deep, long game. I mean, you tend to let your guard down when you underestimate your opponent, right? Exactly. This is the game of Go. You're underestimating your opponent. You lull them into a false sense of security, and then you surround them and attack. It's pretty much all it is. And
that was a great thing. From Game of Thrones when with the Red Viper, he had this, he got his head crushed by the mountain, and there's a great, I'll just do this quickly. There's a great thing in the book where, the brother who survived, is talking, he's got gout and he's soft and everybody, and he's playing this super long game and he calls himself the grass that hides the viper. His brother was the one who struck, but I'm the one that lulled you into the sense of security. I'm the nice one. I'm the one who doesn't want to go to war and wants to make peace with Cersei. Of course, they didn't do this in the show, but they did in the book, and it was a brilliant analogy. And I think that's exactly what's going on here. Okay, so we got one Howard who's lulling everybody practically to sleep, and the other one, who look on the surface looks like the more skilled one, maybe isn't. I mean, yes, there's all those scenes they had together where they're getting to know each other. So you'd have to deal with that as far as the long game is concerned, but that could be explainable. And hey, we're under surveillance all the time. We have to have our guard up all the time. I still say it's 50-50. I still think that this show might go into Howard versus Howard, but I think there's something deeper than that, which again, we'll get to later.
Yeah. Neurobrain 10,000 says Coma Emily could be the mole. We don't know how high up in the company she is, and really hard to tell the end game for the bad guys. What the end game is for the bad guys now.
It really is.
Yeah.
On the surface, it looks like the bad guys from the Prime World are out to get revenge for the influenza that we find out from Howard again. Like a great scene that we should talk about is like, hey, nobody's shopping here. Where is everybody? You brought this up. And her explanation doesn't totally explain it to me, honestly. That's 500 million people died. 7%. 7% of the population. And their side of the world is empty. I don't know if that's the entire truth, because 7% of the world's population spread out, while would be noticeable, but not that much.
No,
honestly, not that much.
Yeah, and there's also some other telltale signs, like we'll get into it in a minute here. So our next thing is we have Baldwin cleaning a gun in the cafe restroom, and we can see that she's got no money, she's got no resources, she's got no one to turn to, and she's using her last bit of money basically to buy some coffee and toast. And the waitress sees her eyeing the food off on the side some guy had left, and she gives her a bowl of soup, shows her some kindness. I'm pretty sure that waitress is going to die at some point in time, but
after she has sex with Baldwin, though.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just really, these little things that we see of Baldwin, of just her kind of getting a handle on pulling herself together now that she has no resources. And that's what we're seeing right now from her.
Well, she's been so tightly controlled and focused on her being an assassin, just like she was tightly controlled in her counterpart at being a musician, that she did not have an outside life. So she definitely looks like that person who's kind of free now and doesn't know what to do when the waitress shows her a kindness. Like, she doesn't even know how to react to that. Like, people are not kind to her. So, and it shows that she has been trained from birth to be an assassin. And we get into that later.
So Jody says here, I'm going to go to some of the comments before we continue. What I wonder is whether or not, sorry, the wrong one. Aurora Brain 10,000. Yeah, we did that. And then Viking Bitch, there we go. What if Meek Howard knew about Emily's affair and set up the accident? Maybe this is all an elaborate act.
Definitely possibility. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I don't think he could be that clueless. I really don't.
Yeah.
Especially when it's multiple affairs at this point. It's multiple affairs.
Yeah.
So,
and Richard Jones says Coma Emily might pull a jigsaw and be faking being in a coma.
Totally. I was thinking that this episode. I mean, that's a long ass game.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be surprised if we have some scene where somebody walks out of the room and she's got some apparatus where she can, because they know, like, if she pulled away from the breather, an alarm would go off. So you would
Well, it
need to
goes down her
have
throat. Yeah.
yeah. Well, unless it's not really all the way down her throat, like they did stick it down her throat. Like show a scene where she first gets in there and then like she pulls it out of her throat and like puts on something that keeps the alarm from going off, and then every time somebody walks in the room, she has to put it on her face real fast. I don't know. Uh, I don't think they would do that, but they could. They definitely could.
So then we have Aldrich taking Quill out to the countryside Quail. I'm sorry, I said Quill. We have Aldrich taking Quail out to the countryside to meet Alice, and Alice is a defector from the other side. And he brings her over some contraband red tea.
Mm.
It's kind of funny because Quail even goes, "Hey, that's contraband. You're not supposed to." And Aldrich just kind of looks at him like, "Yeah, I know." And then we get some interesting news from Alice. Alice said she's tried to grow this on our side here, but the soil is so arid. Second time we've had a mention of this in the show, that our side here isn't as I guess you could say fertile as it is over on the prime side.
Well, we've had references of the water being clean on the prime side, possibly more resources on the prime side.
Mm-hmm.
And now the soil is better.
Yeah.
So that would make a lot of sense if an influenza went over there and I don't know, took out half the population, not 7%, but like half.
Yeah.
And
or more.
All our side is trying to figure out is a way to get there, to get the resources. Because it would make sense if they were a duplicate society, right? Who's to say that they would burn our resources as fast as we did? You know, maybe that's one of the changes. Maybe one of the things of duplication is the soil starts out richer or something like that. I don't know. Just something to think about.
Exactly. And also the thing is, she keeps calling Aldrich Mousy.
Mousy. Yes.
And showing him a lot of affection, and he's actually noticeably nicer. He's not as stone cold killer as we've seen him be. He's kind of lightened up a little bit as well. And at this point is when we switch back over to Howard and Emily Prime, talking about Pope, and they're strolling through the mall there, and that's when Howard asks her, he goes, I don't see any people shopping. What's going on? And also, I don't know if you saw that sign that said Paris open for business again on the wall.
I did not. That's interesting.
Yeah, it was a big sign because when you first see them walking, and the big sign sitting right there on the wall, and it says Paris open for business again.
That's interesting because the influenza happened a long time ago.
Yeah, supposedly in the 90s, right?
So something else has happened.
Yeah, and it wasn't a plane that was that they were showing. It was a spacecraft.
Where? On the
sign. On the
Oh,
sign.
really? I'm gonna go back and see that. That's interesting.
Yeah, it was like like a low orbital plane. So yeah, it was nothing like a normal plane. So that was one of the
interesting.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
that's good.
They are much more technologically advanced than we are.
Well, their phones are for sure.
Yeah. So there's definitely something that's a little bit different there. And this is where Emily basically says, see that guy down there? We need to find out where Lambert is dropping off his attaches that are coming in.
Yep.
And she says, see that guy down there? You're going to need to talk to him and find out what the address is that they're dropping off these attaches. And he's, she goes, don't worry, I'll be here with you. I'll be watching your back, but you're going to have to act.
He wasn't questioning this at all. He was like, okay, I'll go down there. Yeah.
Exactly.
So red flag right there.
Exactly. And that's when we see that. Oh, go ahead.
Well, yeah, they go down and they have a little chat, right? And, Howard again, gets more information, and the guy he's talking to, Howard Prime, is his mentor, so he's gonna open up to him anyway. And again, it's a really weird situation. They're in this big, expensive looking restaurant in this big, expensive looking building, and it's sparse. Where did that
There's
fit
nobody.
everybody?
Yeah.
There's nobody there. And again, Emily looks so kind, even though she's a badass spy, she looks kind and real. I'm not buying that either.
I'm not either.
Yeah.
No.
So he talks to him, and once he starts grilling him almost a little bit too much, that's when the guy like bugs out.
Yeah, he bolts.
Yep.
And Emily follows him, of course, and she ends up trapping him and basically saying, you know, you need to tell us what the address is. She goes, otherwise we're just going to kill you. Kind of thing. And he coughs up the address fairly quickly, that it's 2 hours outside of Berlin. And he gives him the address and he leaves. Emily's got a gun, of course, on this entire time that she's grilling him. So now they know where these attaches are going.
Emily and Howard know.
Yes, Emily and Howard know. So we also have Howard Prime ends up waiting for Andre to leave. And he breaks into Andre's apartment and finds a go bag hidden up in the attic filled with money from his side and files and a gun. Lots. And then so that leads us to believe at this point that Andre is from the other side, from the Prime side, I should say, and is over here illegally at first, because we don't get the entire information there. But actually what ends up happening is, I'm just going to cut to that next scene where, Prime confronts Andre because he comes in and he finds out that Andre has been having an affair with Coma Emily and has been for 10 months prior to her getting to the accident. And that the reason why he met Andre in the hospital was he was trying to go and see her, and he made up the whole story about having a sick relative with diabetes in the hospital. When really he's screwing his wife.
Yep. And peeing his pants, by the way.
Yes.
Howard Prime made him pee his pants. Now, I don't know if that was, yeah, I've seen euros before. It didn't really look like a euro, but I don't know if that was German money or other side money. That
was the other side money.
It was other side money.
Remember we saw in the first episode that Baldwin had in her bag?
I didn't look at the money that much, to be honest with you. But yeah, it would make sense. You would have money of some kind to get the hell out of there. But I'm not just totally convinced that's Emily. Andre could have been putting on an act as well. I mean, peeing yourself is pretty convincing, but I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, there's actually a Walking Dead episode that just happened in this season where one of the guys did that. He was trying to pretend that he wasn't part of the Saviors group. And then later on, he goes, you know how hard it is to pee yourself?
See? So I think it definitely, everything's in question, and that's good. Yeah. Everything should be.
So then we cut back over to Alice, and Alice telling Quayle and Aldrich about the school. And the school are trained operatives. They're basically trained to be placed on this side in their doubles place. So they're trained how to take over the person's life, and basically just infiltrate that life completely.
They were being sleepers, and the other name for them is the most interesting, because they took this from something. So they're called, for one, they're again raised from children, so that's why it's called the school, and they're indigo children.
Yes, Project Indigo.
If you guys know about, if anybody else knows about that new agey indigo child thing, which is it's a new agey, it's like an urban myth that there's these kids exist who are on a different spiritual, they have higher intelligence, but they're on a different spiritual level too. They're basically super kids. Okay. And it was made up by some, again, new ager back in the early 70s. So they took a little bit from that, So I thought that was interesting. So they put some basis into that weird urban legend of indigo children. They actually exist now, at least in this show, and they are from the other side.
Yes.
Other side, not the other
Um.
side.
Oh, and yes, I forgot to mention. Going back to Andre. Yeah, Andre didn't know that Emily was married at the time, supposedly. And then also, yes, that was Emily's go bag, as she had hid it in Andre's apartment.
Yeah. It seems like to me he gave up a little too easy and was laying it on a little thick with the "please don't
Yeah.
kill me."
Yeah.
So yeah.
So we're okay. And then also, Alice ends up saying that there was somebody that was called the Shadow, who was probably the highest marked person at the school, who was getting ready to get placed in a really high place in the office. Um, and they just knew that there was an opening on our side in this office, and that's where she was going to be placed. But she doesn't know who it is.
And that's what led her to confess to our side, supposedly, and why she wanted to defect because she overheard this conversation and but without knowing any details, but they knowing that there was going to be some sort of an operation that was
Yeah.
going to be bad, where people are going to die and get replaced with this shadowy indigo children's school organization. Didn't seem like she had a lot of details. And Aldrich had to coax her twice to say exactly what you said to me.
Mhm.
Just repeat it back. And Peter had to get some stuff out of her too. He's like, "Whoa, what people? What? Where? What? You know?" And Peter Quill, a character I don't hate. Yeah, he's kind of a sleazeball, but I don't hate. He just looks like. Are we waiting for him to die at some point?
Yeah, he's pretty much he's clueless for someone who is supposed to be running a lot of the ops here. Completely clueless as to what's going on in any shape or form. You could totally tell nepotism has taken its toll here.
Well, I like your reason for that too, which we will get to at the end. So when we give you
Yeah.
our theories, which are very spoilery. So if you want to jump out at that point, I mean, we don't know for a fact that this is just what we think at this point. Go on.
So, oh, and by the way, we also, after Howard Prime had confronted Andre, he ended up going to the hospital and standing over comatose Emily and very disappointed in her. And you could tell, and Gary brought this up, even though he wasn't the one that was having the relationship with this Emily, it almost seemed like she had cheated on him the way he was acting. And it was like he was hurt all over again. It was very weird.
There was two big reveals in those two scenes, the ones with Alice and the ones with Howard going back there. The ones with Alice was there, and then Alice Prime was there, and then regular Alice came home, right? And
Yes.
there was a husband who came in and wanted to, "Hey, oh, hey everybody, you want to try the mint? It's fresh." And she's like, "Oh, don't forget about the roast in the oven, and you always burn it." And oh, he's so handsome, but can't cook worth a crap. So the other Alice comes in and goes, "Hi, Mousy," and the husband comes out. He kisses her too. Okay,
Yeah.
so he made out like a bandit out of this on this deal. So no wonder why he's happy and distracted all the time and can't concentrate on the roast. Who could? Yeah, and then she sits down and she reminds him about the roast, and he goes, "Yeah, yeah, whatever." And she says the exact same thing Alice said, is like, "Oh, so handsome, but it can't cook with the crap." Showing us again that maybe people aren't as different as we were led to believe. And
Well,
maybe when they start coming in contact with each other, they start blending again.
going back together again. Yeah.
Yeah,
Viking Bitch actually brings up a good point too. Was Howard Prime having an affair with Coma Emily?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
What he said earlier, all of our years together and you're still left in the dark. So, I mean, a very close business relationship, we'll call it at this point. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think his disappointment looked like they were having an affair.
Yeah.
So, yeah, real world Emily, very duplicitous, we'll just say.
Yeah.
Triple plicitous.
And yeah, I did love that whole scene. You could totally tell. And I mean, and I don't know if you noticed, but both Alice's kiss each other on the lips. It wasn't on the cheeks or anything like that.
Oh, yeah. I
Yeah, it
saw
was on the
that.
lips.
That's
And I was
why I
like,
said
Oh,
Well, he's either in Nightmare World or Stoked. It could be one
yeah.
or the other. Depends on how Alice is. Um, or a
And
little of
yes,
both.
Richard Jones, we did forget to mention that the flu, Emily Prime had mentioned how the flu almost took Anna when she was little, and that's how Emily's drug use started.
Oh yeah, that was important. Thank you.
Yeah.
Uh, Again, her spilling to Howard completely. So he's getting the operational structure of the office. He's getting everything on her job, and he's getting everything on Howard Prime's life.
Yeah.
Like all at once, just because he decided to bail on Raj and take a walk. And out of all this, he's got more intel than anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we find out, so we see Claire, or the three people are in their apartment, the three that we started off the episode with. We see that here the door open up. So one of them gets the gun off the counter and he's pointing at the door. And we see Claire walk in. And the woman nods at him and says, it's okay. And Claire comes in. And Claire gives him a bag and says, here's what your operations are. Everything you need is inside the bag. And the one woman, the redhead woman, says, I just want to take this opportunity to say it's an honor to meet you. You were in the class ahead of me, but she talks about you all the time. We don't know who she is. And she goes, I just wanted to say again what an honor it is working with you. Now, is Claire Shadow? She
I think
might be.
I think Claire is Shadow, but I think that's pretty obvious. The biggest question in that was who is she? Who is she who is ahead of you and she who talks about her all the time? So it's either a person we've never met because there's not a lot of she's. So it's either Baldwin, which it's not, okay, because Baldwin's clearly younger than Claire, and not an instructor. So she was referring to an instructor, okay, in the
Okay,
school.
well, Pope, now that we know that Pope was actually a, how did he call it? He's a runner.
Yeah,
What if Emily, comatose Emily, was a runner on our
that's what
side?
I was getting at, is that I think the she that she was referring to when it comes to Chloe was Emily, one of the Emilys.
Yeah. I don't think it's Emily Prime. I think it's Emily, comatose Emily,
Hmm.
which would make sense if she's training people to infiltrate over here. What better person to train them than someone from over here?
Well, that would make more sense than Emily Prime, who's had a daughter. Okay,
Yeah.
so the Emily who didn't have a kid would have a singular focus on career, I think,
Yeah.
and doing dirty work and
And it
wet
also
works and stuff like that. Yeah.
and it makes more sense with Howard Prime saying we worked together for years instead of just
Yeah.
having the month worth of yeah.
So they it looks like that this shadowy organization, the school, Pope, Emily, has been working Howard Prime this whole time. Like he's been played big
Yes.
time. And he's the one high up, and maybe he was accidentally a mole. You can be a mole and not know you're being a mole, just thinking you're trusting your wife or girlfriend or something like that. So that could be the situation. But there's something like way deeper in this. Like, let's get to the end of the episode and we'll get to that.
Okay. So then we also have Baldwin again standing outside smoking and some guy bumming the smoke off of her. And he goes, you'd be a lot prettier if you smiled. And she turns to the side, shows him her gash on the side of her mouth, and blows some smoke out of it.
Lady Joker, Lady Joker, and she was following Claire. So
Yeah.
she's on Claire's tail, and if Claire is the shadow and supposed to be this ultimate badass, wouldn't you make sure Baldwin's dead? Because Baldwin was a well-known assassin, one of the best.
Yeah.
So I would want to see a body. I'd want to see a body. And did she not hear back from her guy who supposedly killed her? So that was something odd.
Yeah. It was just very weird.
Maybe that not enough time has passed. Maybe we're still like hours after that guy's death. I don't know. But that was a little weird. And we do get some interaction in the future. They tell us that in the scenes a little bit. So and I think Claire does genuinely in her own way kind of care for Baldwin. We're going to see how much of a wild card Baldwin is. She looks like I fully expect for her to work with one of the Howards pretty soon. Pretty soon at this point.
Also, Jim in the American Redoubt says an observation: the generation of students from the other side are all about the same age as Anna. This would have made them around age 5 during the flu pandemic.
That's a
Um,
very good observation.
yeah, and it's
Well done.
realistic to imagine during the pandemic that ill but recovering children were whisked away from hospitals, and their parents told they had passed away and that their bodies had been immediately cremated. This was, after all, a flu paranoid society. Then these children would be told that their parents and siblings had died of the flu and that they had been adopted. Result: a large group of the 5-year-old blank slates available for training as future covert crossover agents, and 15 plus years to intensively train them.
So, do you think our side really did send an influence over there
I don't think so.
on
I think it
purpose?
was, yeah, I don't think it was on purpose. It could have been someone who had the flu, and it was something that had never happened on that side, and it just spread by accident.
Well, I do know this. This is not a spoiler because I don't know the details on it, but a client was in one of my wife's chair, hair salon, and they were talking about Counterpart yesterday. And apparently, client knows somebody who writes it or something like that. And either episode 6 or 7, we get the big reveal. I don't know
Oh,
what that
wow.
is, but
Okay.
we get the big reveal. So
Uh,
look forward to
thank,
that.
thank you, Richard Jones, for the $2 donation.
Oh, thanks, man.
And he says, do you think Baldwin will kill the 3 people in
Yes,
the apartment? Yeah.
yes. Um, even the guy who kind of looked like a refugee, unless it doesn't look like Baldwin wants answers to any questions. I'd say maybe she'd leave one of them to get some info, but it looks like she's just like, I'm gonna kill you.
Well, remember when Claire gives them their assignments, she says, "Oh, you're going to take over these people's lives, and they're not dead yet." And he goes, "What? We have to kill them?" Which I think that's what Baldwin. She was supposed to kill their counterparts
Yep.
for them to take over.
And now they got to take it. It looks like at least one of those guys will not have a problem doing it whatsoever.
Yeah,
Um,
now with the glasses. Yeah.
yeah. So, but I think, yeah, she will. She's going to take them out, and I don't know what she's going to do to Claire though. That's going to be the interesting thing. Because I don't think that'll be an easy fight for Baldwin. I think Claire might fight back.
She's going to have to take Claire in, honestly, because I think she's going to want to clear her name.
Do you think so? I think she just might stay on that side. She's safe on that side, somewhat. If she gets the hell out of Germany, she could just go away. You know, if you get the
True.
further away from the entrance, you get further away from their influence. But we did find out in this episode, I can't remember the scene now, but somebody mentioned that they have infiltrated everything.
Yeah,
Possible.
that was Alice. When
Yeah.
Alice was
Yeah.
talking about that level that was open, but that they've probably infiltrated at all levels. No, as it was actually Emily. I take that back. Emily Prime, when she was talking about Lambert bringing people over,
Yep.
and that the entire embassy was now compromised. So
And yeah,
that's
somebody had mentioned something else, but I know Alice had mentioned the power structure there. Like it's really different that they do a board of directors. They don't have a head guy. They don't have a manager. They have people deciding, which is interesting. And that can always open it to squabbles. So maybe squabbles are their thing. You know, I mean, maybe that's just a regular thing.
or a coup. Because
Or
remember,
yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
yeah, Jody says here he was talking about to Jim in the American Redoubt. He says that sounds incredibly freaky if true, but it does make a certain amount of sense if you want a generation of assets that were skilled and loyal. It makes me think of something the Soviets might have pulled during the Cold War, which leads me back to the Soviets won the Cold War on their side, and this is all part of Soviet uh, thinking, if you will. And
If this happened in the 80s, if the accident happened in the 80s, which I'm pretty sure it did,
yeah,
then I could definitely see that. I can see that.
yeah. So interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
So then we get to see Aldrich at work in the office.
Yeah, this was the one most interesting scene. It was nothing, but it was the most interesting scene where it shows him opening a safe, taking out some slippers from the safe
Mm-hmm.
and taking off his work shoes, his dress shoes, and putting on these slippers and going, "Ooh, my feet are so comfortable in here," and tapping his knees and getting up and going to work. And he lives in the office.
Yes.
He's a workaholic. And that scene just totally reminded me of my pops. My pops used to put on those like slippers, just like they were actually shoes that had the backs crushed down. And yeah, he got home every day, do the same thing Aldrich did. He'd get home, put on his slippers, and go do some work. Never see him again. Yeah. So that was an interesting scene. And this episode, for some reason, made me like Aldrich. Like I like him. I'm probably being set up for, for him being a bad guy at some point.
Oh yeah.
But it gave him another layer, even though he hasn't really said much. So you got to watch out for the people who don't talk in this show, but they say so much. But they're the smartest ones.
Yeah. Rubber Brain 10,000 actually brings up a good point. Based on my Soviet, has won the Cold War theory. He says that makes sense why they would ask for the American census then. If the Soviets won, they probably nuked America.
Yeah, that is a good point. That is a good point. But yeah, let's get through the end of this episode.
Yes, let's get through here. So we finally have well, we actually already talked about Prime stopping by Emily at the hospital and thanking her for the info that she stashed in Andre's apartment. But then we have Anna stopping by to visit Howard and wants to know why he keeps coming back into their lives and basically why he keeps screwing things up. And he tells her, he goes, you know what? He goes, just pretend I'm not the guy who screwed up your life, who, keeps messing things up, who doesn't know anything about you at all. He goes, just pretend I'm a complete and total stranger and tell me everything about you and everything that I've missed.
Yep. And he does it with pure emotion, right?
Yeah.
His eyes are watering up and he's got this love for his daughter, which I think he genuinely has.
Mm-hmm.
But he's also going to get a lot of background on Emily and Howard Prime.
Yep.
And that's pretty much how we end the episode. And it was just Meek Howard, going Columbo on everybody throughout the entire freaking episode.
Yeah.
You had this emotional scene that on the surface looks like, I just want to know my daughter. And that's what it could be. It could be just face value right there. I just don't think so.
I think it is.
Yeah. And the reason I say that is if you watch it on Star, well, I guess everybody's watching on Stars, and you see the little after the Justin Marks comes on for a couple minutes and talks about each show. He said something really cool this time. He's like, listen, we're dealing with this fantastical sci-fi, and I wanted to wrap it in the most just mundane bureaucracy, in the most mundane thing possible. And you hide things in plain sight. And then I remembered something I saw in the credits. And we've always said, everybody knows that the credits of a good show, especially nowadays, when they do these fancy credits, they tell the story of the show. And Marx has said repeatedly that the answers they're right in front of you. The answers of all the questions are right there in front of you. You just got to find them. A lot of it's in the game of Go, but I found something in the credits that was very interesting. That there's, you see these figures walking around these big offices as your credits run by. About 2/3 of the way into the credits, there is the figure that looks like Howard, right? It looks like a silhouette of Howard walking up to a wall, and then you see the other copy of him walking up and touching the same wall, and then it backs out, and it's like you're in the Go game, but you're in a bunch of boxes, right? And it backs out and it just shows infinite boxes, like infinite reflections in a mirror. So I think this season we're gonna get we've got a copy of a universe, but I think it was way more than just a copy. I think it's just copy on a copy on a copy on a copy. And you made a good point that maybe like you can't access all of them though. Like you can access one from the other.
Yeah.
And maybe there's like a back door at the Prime one, and maybe like where our world is, there's only one door in, but if you go through the Prime world, there might be a back door, or I think we might be dealing with like maybe another Howard. Yeah, I know I'm going super deep in the weeds on this one. And maybe this is like a season 3 or 4 thing, but they wouldn't show that in the credits if it wasn't. And if you're gonna copy one, why in nature? Where in nature does nature only make one copy? And I know it's a sci-fi concept and everything, but it doesn't. It makes multiple copies, and I think it's cool.
Jody says, Gary, like the old Vulcan axiom, infinite diversity and infinite combinations.
Yes, that old Vulcan axiom.
And by the way, thank you, Viking Bitch, for noticing the shirt. Yes, this is the Guild of Calamitous Intent.
Guild of Calamitous Intent.
Yes.
Yes. So yeah, that's where I think we're at with this. What do you think, Dennis?
Yeah, I'm with you on this. God, there's so much information being given out in these episodes, man, and I'm hoping that we do get like the big reveal, like you said, in next episode. I would love to have it up next episode because it's driving me bonkers at this point.
Well, you were at the halfway point, so this is where they stretch out the tease, then they give you a little something, episode 6 or 7, but then it's kind of a hoodwink, and then they supposedly, they're really raising the bar and raising expectations by being so good. So I hope it's it doesn't
reveal,
it doesn't have to be a blowing, and it won't be. It'll be mundane. That's the theme of the show, and that's what's it's wrapped up within that. But yeah, at this point, I mean, I think a lot of things, but I keep going back and forth. I like, oh, this is going to turn into just like a Howard versus Howard, or maybe it's Howard's working together, or maybe it's maybe Pope is the good guy, and maybe our world sucks and actually did try to wipe out their world so we could take all their stuff. That'd be pretty horrible. But yeah, who knows? I want to see. No, I don't know if I should say. Do you guys want to know? I think the big reveal, I just remembered, I think the big reveal, and I don't know this for sure, so if it doesn't happen, no, is they show the accident.
Emily's accident?
The accident, like what caused the rift, which I think we all assume they would kind of show a little bit of, maybe not the whole thing, but
yeah, that'd be interesting. That'd be very interesting.
And it'll probably be something really simple, like you hear a noise and somebody opens a door and sees himself going, "Hey, what?" Hey, you look like me,
So some of the comments here, David Schmeiden says Isaac Asimov's The Gods Themselves, which I haven't read, so I don't know. Viking Bitch says when reality broke, it shattered like glass, and now we have infinite pieces.
Yeah, and maybe the further away it gets, the further away from the copy it gets, kind of like in the 9 princes of Amber. You have Amber, and then the copies of the Earth, the 9 copies of the Earth, and the further away you get from Earth, it's or from Amber actually, because Earth is in the middle between Amber and the Hell world or whatever. It gets more distorted. So.
And Jody says it would be very interesting if they ended the season introducing the concept of a multiverse, but that would mean the writing has to be that much tighter. Yeah,
I think they're keeping us in the dark is, it's a good way to make yourself look like a really clever writer. J.J. Abrams does this a lot. So it's all in your execution. It's all how you end this stuff. You could set up great stuff that just falls apart. I mean, a Fringe was like I guess a better example of him ending stuff okay, but Lost and I know, and Alias, Alias was started out great, and well, it all depends on how it ends. But yeah, it will have to get tighter. The world will have to get bigger. You'll have to bring in more characters. So, and this is a star show, and for it's a slick, clean looking show, but it doesn't require CG. You're just on sets. Looks like you're pretty much shooting around Berlin. I don't know how expensive that is, over like a 10-week period, and you're just in office buildings. So that's pretty easy to shoot.
Yeah. And Smiden says 2 things here. He says it's a quote. The number 2 is impossible and cannot exist is the Wham riddle. Two universes are silly, which I guess is the Asimov book. He says the novel involves two universes in contact, one killing us. Scientists figure out there must be more than two.
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Jody also says, so would we end up with some kind of Crisis on Infinite Earth situation?
Like some red skies. Yeah, I think so. Sure, it'd be fun. See Superman flying through the door. Kingdom Come Superman, though. No. We see J. Jonah Jameson come in. More J.K. Simmons would be interesting. Like,
yeah. Yeah, then you start going to Orphan Black territory.
Kind
at
of.
that point.
But that'd be awesome if you did Orphan Black with J.K. Simmons and you had like this really flamboyant hairdresser and like a homeless version and some military ops version and like a soccer dad,
Scientists.
a scientist, podcaster.
You have just one total stoner.
Yeah, right. Drug addict. There you go.
Who has the most insight out of all of them.
Yep. All right. We got to wrap this up.
Yes,
so.
I think so. I think we're good on. We've blown everyone's minds at this point. I think it's good to go.
That's good. There's a joke there. I will not go.
Yeah.
Nah, I just nah. So hey, I hope everybody noticed that my chair did not squeak.
Yeah, Gary's got a different chair.
Episode. I'm in.
I was gonna say, see, Viking bitch, all that money you put towards it, he changed out his chair.
That would be a lie. If I said it was true. Yeah, this is the air. Like I have my room is weird. This house is old. Everything about it was added on later. So this room well, you can see like there's a wall that goes sideways right here. So there's like a little cubby, and I've been wanting to make this my podcast area, but the wiring didn't work out. So I finally did it. So I was just lazy about it. But the squeaky chair made me finally get into my comfy chair. Not the comfy chair, but yeah. So this show is great. It has not had a bad episode. It's only 5, but they're 5 really good episodes, and I hope you guys are enjoying it as much as we are.
Yeah,
and I hope we've turned a couple people onto this show, or you've told some friends and got some, because it needs your support. We need to support good stuff. And the best way to change something if it's bad, Star Wars, is like to not buy it. And to not look at it and to not talk about it. But but we need to like really support stuff like this. And I don't know how long it's going to last. It's on Stars, but it looks pretty cheap, like I said before. So it could go for a while. That would be fun. And I could see this one going for many, many seasons. And I would be very, very happy. But it's okay that this is the only show we're covering for just the last couple of weeks. But our next show, I can't wait, which is a week from yesterday, Ash vs. Evil Dead. It's going to be
we've got one other show tomorrow.
Not TV show. Well, we're going to do a Star Wars Rebels, but that's going to be part of a bigger podcast. But I mean, show we're going to regularly recap, not like just a one-off. Okay, not like the Tick, or because we are doing the Tick next week too, which I'm very, very excited about. But as far as just weekly recaps, we're going to be doing Ash vs. Evil Dead, 10:30 p.m. Saturday night. And we can't push that one to Sunday because that's where we God, it's been over a year. It's been a year and a half since Ash season 2. Yeah. So we did the quote unquote midnight ones, and they're very good. They did well for us, and that was the first kind of thing that was doing well for us. That in Westworld. So I can't wait for that show. And the Tick. Yeah, next weekend is going to be great. So we have the Tick, Counterpart, Ash vs. Evil Dead. We're going to talk about Star Wars Rebels tomorrow. And Krypton's coming after that. A lot of shows are coming.
Legion in April. I just saw a commercial for it on FX.
Westworld, and you should be hearing about The Expanse any day now when season 3 is dropping. I think it's June. I think that's
Darth Barbecue. You've never watched Ash before, binge it from season 1. You really don't need to watch any of the older movies. they kind of tie you into it with the TV show itself. So
Yeah, the first episode gives you a pretty good rundown of everything.
yeah,
And it's other than it being the same character and fighting some Dibbler, you could watch just this show and you're fine. You're
yeah,
absolutely fine. Because it's Evil Dead 2 was a remake of Evil Dead, and
yeah.
Ash versus Evil Dead is like a longer, drawn out, older remake of Evil Dead 2. So we haven't
Well,
gotten to the Army of Darkness territory. I really wish we would.
yeah,
But they don't have the budget for that. So there you go. So watch Counterpart, everybody. It's really good.
exactly.
Any final words, Dennis?
Children of Earth, please don't let the door hit your ass on the way out.
Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next week, 7:30 Sunday for Counterpart, and tomorrow if you want to watch us talk about Star Wars Rebel.
And hit the like
in the
button.
evening.
Hit the like button for this. The thumbs up, and also you can see all of our podcasts in the description where they're located at.
All of our links will be down there. So good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.